Hey, good evening, everybody. And it has been long overdue, but I am joyous this evening to have our friend, Professor Hamamoto, back, who's an expert in the infiltration of intelligence into academia, not to mention exposing music industry shenanigans, and this week, the Oscars. But there's also just so much to talk about. This is going to be interesting. So, viewers, please follow Hamamoto on his YouTube channel. Let me have a look where he's at these days with his subscribers. Let's see if we can give him a little assist. All of his links are in the description box below this video. Hamamoto on YouTube is the top link in the description box. I'm going to put it in the live chat right now before I look at myself to see where he's at. Do you know where you're at, Professor?
Oh, yes.
On subscribers. What is it you're at?
I think it's about 54,000 something.
Ooh, it's
Thanks to
rising
you.
steadily, isn't it?
It's rising steadily.
54.6.
I'll be at 100 before long.
Yes, you will. And then it just goes and goes. All right, so the Oscars then. Should we start with that?
Mr. Atwood, it's wonderful being back with you today, and you're wonderful.
Oh, thank you.
Yes, we will talk about the Oscars, and if it's okay, I'd like to drill down a little bit more closely into ARIANA Grande, right? Because there's a lot of chatter about her on TubeU and the socials and any manner of gossip about her life and her doings. And then further, I'd like to talk about the remake or the revisioning of the classic Wizard of Oz. It's now been transformed into a feature extravaganza musical film known as Wicked, and Ariana Grande and her co-star named Cynthia Evero, I think it's pronounced. She's Black British, by the way. And she has training at the Royal Academy of Dramatic Arts. She has a bachelor's degree from there. So she's a real actor, unlike most of your American people who are celebrities first, actors second. And she does a very good job there. But there's a lot of problems in the Emerald City, the land of Oz. And for one thing,
does that tie into Gene Hackman, the Wizard of Oz?
No, he died last week under mysterious circumstances. I don't mean to be giggling about it, but it's
you got me giggling.
It's kind of
giggling inappropriately.
He was, connected to the French Connection, the film. He's really good. He was an actor's actor. And he was not a Hollywood type, which, by the way, we're talking about Hollywood today, but a point I think is very important to understand in the year 2025. When we say Hollywood, we're talking about a global system. It's global Hollywood. It's no longer a physical geographic location in Southern California, in Los Angeles County, much of which was burnt out recently. Yeah, there's a lot of big news here. And I think it's connected, the burning out of the people of Pacific Palisades and the relocation of the Hollywood industry to other parts of the globe. In fact, England, the UK, is one of the primary places of relocation, as well as Canada. The principal first production was at the new Sky Studios at the classic Elstree Studios outside of London. And this is I don't know if you've seen the film, but it's highly, I'd say, state-of-the-art graphics, opticals, and CG, of course. And it's being done not in quote-unquote Hollywood. There she is, Ariana Grande Butera, the star. Most of you know her face if you don't know her name. And then the other part of the so-called Hollywood film, Wicked, was filmed in Canada. Because I waited, and in preparation for today's appearance, I watched the film from beginning to end. It's over 2 hours long, by the way. It's about the gayest film you'll ever want to watch intentionally so, because part of the agenda, and I hope you don't get dinged for this, but they're proud of it themselves because I've been watching, the gay channels on TubeU. They're very proud that their agenda is getting so much exposure, central exposure. And this film has already made big box office. It's made relatively cheaply. It's already made, I think, over $700 million in the global market. So we're talking about global Hollywood. And part of this global, in addition to production, we talked about Canada and the UK. It's an international, it's an Anglo-American production. You're also talking about the rise, and it's no news to anybody, the rise of Asia. So there is a unusually large number of significant presence of yellow people in the land of Oz, in the Emerald City. One is the head witch. She's the dean of sorcery at Wiz University. It's sort of like Hogswart University. Harry Potter has Harry Potterish overtones, sort of like also, what was it, Willy Wonka? It has these sort of fantastical images. The person who did the art direction for Wicked deserves the Academy Award. Maybe they won it. I'm not really sure because I didn't follow it that closely. But you've got Michelle Yeoh, is this woman. Her name is Harible. I might be getting her name wrong, so the nitpickers can correct me down there. It doesn't invalidate what I'm saying if I get her name wrong. But the point is, it's Michelle Yeoh. We know her from Crouching Tiger, all these wuxia movies, the martial arts films, made in China, financed by Chinese money or Singaporean, Malaysian, Hong Kong, big gangster bucks, just like in the West, right? And she was the star of this, and now she is a mystical Oriental woman. Michelle Yeoh, by the way, she was also Miss Malaysia many years ago. So most people would recognize her face, and now she's moved in sort of this sort of mystical Oriental grandmotherly role as the dean of sorcery studies at Wiz University, WHIZ, which is probably, I'm guessing, ghetto talk for a wizard, because the Wizard of Oz, this is only part one, by the way. We're in for a franchise here because it's a moneymaker. So there's going to be a Wicked 2, maybe a Wicked 3 until Ariana Grande ages out. And the backstory is this woman who is Cynthia Evero, the Black British woman actress, educated at RADA, the Royal Academy of Dramatic Arts. The backstory is that, as you know from the classic film, she gets crushed by the house, right? And Dorothy sees this, and the ruby slippers are taken by her, and then on we go into the classic. I think 1932 is when it came out, the original. So the film is about how the Wicked Witch of the West became wicked, hence the title of the film. And it so happens that she, the witch in this one here, is a Black woman. She's Black British, as I mentioned, but they don't want to be so obvious in talking about race, so they make her being different. This is the Wicked Witch of the West. Her name is Alpha or something like, I can't remember exactly. It's probably an anagram of something. It's very Kabbalistic. There's a lot of word magic in here. And I've only seen the film once. So the backstory is that she was born green. So you have a Black British actress who was born green, and not because she's Black is she different, but because she's born green, because we're in the post-racial era. As a lot of my critics like to remind me, because they said, why are you always talking about yellow people and race? And I mean, that's the reality even in 2025. So they make this, the producers, the writers, do this little clever twist and make her into a green. And her whole deal is that she wants, and there's a lot of agendas that are going to start playing out 20 years from now. when the little ones who are watching this film, they're entranced by it, come of age, they reach the age of reason, and all their childhood programming and, dare I say, grooming is going to click in. So I already see that in about from 10, 15 to 20 years from now, there's going to be a renewal of so-called animal rights, right? Because part of the subtext in the film Wicked is the professor who's a goat. He's a talking, speaking goat. He's four-legged, and there's other animals that teach at Wiz University. They're professors. But that's a way of slipping in Holocaust, Kristallnacht type subtext into Wicked. The writers are Jewish, not coincidentally. There's always some sort of Holocaust subtext, even in the most seemingly unlikely film is The Wizard of Oz. And they put it in there because the Gestapo comes into the classroom and takes Professor Goat out there. And who's the person who's Satan? These are like professors who were kicked out of the US. They went to the UK and Britain to create the nuclear bomb, right? Or people like Einstein, people of the Frankfurt School. These are all Jewish intellectuals, Theodor Adorno and Horkheimer, all those people, right? They came to Britain. Well, Freud, too, spent the last part of his life in London. So it becomes a metaphor for the Aryanization of the university.
You've got a question from
Yes,
Nicole.
already.
The Wicked Witch in the original movie is green. So why shouldn't Elphaba be green?
Well, because in the film, the remake of it, she's black. She's a black woman. Why wouldn't she be a white person? The original witch, Margaret Hamilton, was a white lady. They're not picking Cynthia Elvira on sheer talent alone. The racial dimension is crucial to the story, just as sort of the latent anti-Semitism within the text is very important to be put in there. In addition to the fact, I mean, everybody knows about the metaphysical, the occultic dimension of this persona that we love and know through Nickelodeon, the cable channel, which also is international. We know the persona of Ariana Grande, and that's what everybody's fixating on. The fact that she goes on chat shows and says, yes, I'm a witch, right? And she's gifted. She's a transgenerational witch, by the way, in the remake Wicked. And she is gifted. She's handed down. She inherits the famed pointed hat, but she bequeaths it to her friend, Alphabet, the black woman, the green black woman, because she already has psi powers, PSI, telekinesis. And that's why she was let into the school, Wiz University, because Michelle Yeoh, the dean of occultic, supernatural, Luciferian studies, wants to cultivate her for her use to go to work for the Wizard of Oz. And it's the Wizard of Oz who's responsible for the Aryanization, the humanization of the university to get rid of the animals. And the animals are Jews. These are the expats that left Germany, starting the late, directors, people like Fritz Lang, even though his wife, Thea von Harbo herself was a Nazi, Fritz Lang, who did all these anti-fascist films. A lot of them came to the Pacific Palisades that was recently burnt out. A lot of them settled in New York. The whole psychiatric, psychoanalytic establishment came to places like New York and San Francisco. And they had to bring in people like C.G. Jung, Carl Gustav Jung, who was the grandson and son of a clergyman, Protestant, to avoid these accusations that this is a Jewish science, psychology and psychiatry. That's one of the, according to the biographies and whatnot. So there's all these different layers that are in operation when you're watching the Academy Awards. And Jeff Goldblum, not Jeff Gold, I'm sorry, I get them mixed up. Adrian Brody went up there and talked about all the transgenerational trauma that supposedly he inherited from the quote unquote Holocaust. Well, there was also a Holocaust in China. About 80 million Han Chinese were killed, murdered, or starved to death. And I mention that because the director is a Taiwanese American. His name is John Chu. He's the other. There's three significant yellows. The director, John Chu, Michelle Yeoh, we've talked about, and this guy named Bowen Yang, who's sort of the sidekick of the two witches. And of course, he's flaming gay. And in the U.S., he's part of the ensemble of Saturday Night Live. And in Hollywood, in global Hollywood, and this is true also for overseas consumption, any Asian man who pretends to have any sort of supernatural or mortal power is always a flaming homosexual. It's equivalent to the fact that the black male is made to wear a dress and cross-dress by the producers before they're allowed to advance. So this is the yellow man's, and Chu is complicit of this. He's from Palo Alto, California. And for those of you who don't know about that, that's the heart of Silicon Valley. You dig? So he's a crazy rich Asian, which, by the way, he directed. That made big box office. I'm sure that's why they picked him as a second or third choice to direct Wicked, because they know he could do the job. But he's one of them crazy rich Asians, like those people who write in books like that, while I am a ghetto Asian. There's a big difference. So please don't confuse me for being one of them crazy rich Asians, because there's gonna be a glut of them. I'm more interested in stories of the ghetto people like me, the ones who are working in Chinatown in anonymity, not the ones who are from Silicon Valley, who have tons of money, who only a generation ago could not even live there. So there's something that Samuel L. Jackson and I have in common. You know the actor Samuel L. Jackson? There's something that we have. We both grew up in segregation. We were not allowed to live in the Palo Alto as John Chu and the other crazy rich Asians. So I'm telling you this as best as I can, because I know a lot of people say, well, the original witch was green, so why are you making a big issue out of it? I'm telling you this is because then we can forestall this whole propaganda assault that's coming down the path. You're going to get nothing but crazy rich transnationals, yellow people in quote unquote Hollywood, which includes the UK, and also because they also want to make sure that China doesn't get a foothold in financing and producing their own films. Right? This is a power play. It's a power politics in the guise of a fantasy tale. That's how you have to look at all of this product that's coming down the chute. And people like John M. Chu is a tool of it. Now, speaking of homosexuality, I always expected I assumed he was gay, because Crazy Rich Asians has another guy as a lead actor, and he's flaming queer too. Because that's what Hollywood wants for the yellow man, just like he wants the black man to wear a dress and to stage mandingo parties for themselves, right? So they can get down with the black bucks, just like on the old South Plantation. It's mandingo time. Well, the same process was going on in China, in Japan, in South Korea, in the Philippines, in Thailand, where they even tried out the gender-bending pharmaceuticals, Bayer, Monsanto. They tried them out on the Thai man, and now there's a whole group of people called Katai. who are transsexuals, and there's a whole sex tourist trade that's built upon it. So all of a sudden we see this little fantasy that little 6-year-olds going, oh, I want to be a witchy princess when I grow up and have a magic wand and have psi powers just like my green black witch and Ariana Grande. So 20 years from now, they're going to be in position to ride herd on you and me. Thank goodness I'll be dead by then, but you're going to have to live under this occultic matriarchy. It's hilarious. But it's already happened. In the U.S., we've got some militant transvestites which are committing acts of terrorism on Tesla dealerships. They're striking out against Elon Musk. One of the writers for the Alex Jones show was murdered in his house in Austin just a couple of days ago. We're talking about dying. Pardon me?
Before we move on to that,
yes.
Can I just ask you?
Yes.
What is the deal with this Ariana lady? She looks a few Fruit Loops short of becoming a glazed over Stepford wife. What's going on with her?
Well, that's a good analogy, and that was written by Ira Levin, by the way, who wrote Rosemary's Baby. Ira Levin was written into it. Well, you know who she bears a resemblance to? The Canadian woman, the songbird, Celine Dion. She's got the same facial affect of someone who's an adrenochrome consumer.
Has she been MK Ultra'd?
Yeah, adrenochrome. She's got the adrenochrome facial aspect.
Let's stay away from that word.
Okay, sorry.
I had a friend who lost his entire channel over it. But
please jump in if I go overboard.
Do you know her backstory then?
Yeah, she's a child star, and I did want to talk about Nickelodeon, even though we're talking about Hollywood and the Oscars and all that. But Nickelodeon is a feeder stream to what we call global Hollywood, and it's a cable channel. And there is British Nickelodeon. I checked it out before coming on here. They have them in Asia. They're in northern Mexico. They're a global franchise. And guess who their audience is? Chillins. Boogie chillins. Children. I'm from the hood, remember? So I say chillin'. And she was a child star. She was a voodoo child. Remember the Jimi Hendrix song, Voodoo Child?
Yeah. She's
a voodoo child.
So was she given up by her parents for fame?
Yes. How did you guess? It's a sacrifice. By the way, people in academia give up their children for advancement. They allow them to go into these MK Ultra. I had this one colleague whose daughter became a boy and whose son became a girl. Is that coincidental? No, I think he donated, just like Ted Kaczynski, the Unabomber. He went to Harvard. It's in a book called Harvard and the Unabomber, Alston Chase. And he was in this program, longitudinal study by a guy named Charles Murray that came right out of the U.S. intelligence. And they were able to craft these people that we sort of called Manchurian candidates. And that whole trope has been allegorized into triviality. That's the risk that we run here. We say, oh, Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde, Manchurian candidate. We're using all these tropes, these memes, these allegories. They've lost their radical meaning. So I encourage everybody to go back to the original Manchurian candidate directed by the great John Frankenheimer, who, by the way, the person who owned the rights to Manchurian candidate was none other than Frank Sinatra, who's in the film. And the great British actor Lawrence Harvey's in there. An incredible. I just saw it again recently because I needed to reacquaint myself to this process that's still very much in play in the 21st century, in 2025. Because we run the risk here, think, oh, we know that already. We heard Ian Carroll on Joe Rogan talking about this, that, and the other. some guy who's been studying for 2 years and, oh yeah, I know everything about it now. I know about the New World Order. I know about MK Ultra. I know about all this. So it's sort of a premature understanding that is working for the other side, right? And this film, the filmmakers, the film writers understand that we have this newly awakened audience. So they're tackling this classic material, The Wizard of Oz, which is written by L. Frank Baum, an American. He wrote a series of 14 books with the Wizard of Oz theme. They're putting a new spin on it for the next generation. So the children of today are on the process of being weaponized for rule tomorrow. The ones we see, the transgender terrorists of today, those people were in formation 20 years ago. The ones that are firebombing the Tesla automobiles and are targeting certain people for death here in America. I don't know if it's happening in Britain yet, but it's happening. It's being suppressed by both mainstream news and independent news. Those people were groomed 20 years ago, a la Manchurian, quote unquote, candidate. It's a delayed reaction.
You got a question?
And they're using, pardon me?
You got a question from RS.
Yes.
Professor, do you believe social status makes them sell their offspring?
If you mean that it's an attempt to advance themselves within the system, then yes, that's what I mean. If they're already there, they have no need. But it's usually the people who are the aspiring middle-class professionals that will do that. And it's biblical. Any number, not just biblical, it's archetypal. People have sold their own flesh and blood in order to advance themselves in society. So it's not unique to us. We have to be on guard of this because it seems to be a cultural universe, trans-historical cultural universal.
Okay, thank you.
I mean, we have people who abort creatures, human beings, with the idea that, oh, it's going to hurt my career. It's going to set me back over at BlackRock, where I work as an accountant, right? Or I'm going to, I'm going through tenure, so I can't afford to have a baby right now, so I'll just get rid of it. So there's all this calculus, and it's been normalized over the past few decades that human life can be treated in such a fashion. And it can be under the guise of so-called kid power. I mean, in preparation for this talk, I was looking in academic papers. All of them say that Nickelodeon Network, people like Ariana Grande, represent children's culture. There is no children's culture. There's just culture. There is no woman's culture. There's no man's culture. There's just culture. This is an attempt to segment the audience and put them into a tube. That's why it's called Tube View. To silo people and to cultivate them and, dare I say, groom them along certain lines for certain specific needs to serve the system. And that's what Wicked is doing. I mean, even the original Wizard of Oz had a political subtext. L. Frank Baum was someone who wanted to promote precious metals, silver, gold, not paper dollars, which eventually were done away with, the Bretton Woods Agreement, right? And it's coded in the form of a child's tale, but it's a very adult story. So for those parents out there and grandparents, you want to be there sitting down when you're watching Wicked or watching any Nickelodeon program at all. There's a reason why they're called programs, right? You want to be there to see what's being put in their minds under your nose. One of the main characters is a guy named SpongeBob. He's a grotesquerie. He's not a human. He's not an object. He's a sponge. He's a transgenic, mutagenic creature. And this is a network that's chock full of supposed third wave feminists. All the executives, the presidents, they are women's, or if you like women. But remember, I'm from the ghetto, so I say women's. So all this, and remember, that's where Ariana Grande comes from. She comes from straight out of the poop chute of Nickelodeon. Who, this is not me talking. This is, you can find it on TubeView. They have all these creepy directors and producers. So I'm not guilty of libel here. This is printed. This is known. This guy has been investigated and found culpable for his actions. Guys like Dan Schneider. And when another showrunner on Nickelodeon and CW, it's another cable channel, Joss Whedon, who, by the way, is a third-generation television writer. His grandfather was writing, and so happens I wrote a book on situation comedies because that was our grooming tool when we were growing up in the golden age of American television. This is about sitcoms, and as I told you, a lot of it was stolen from British television. We talked about that previously. Nervous laughter. So this is a ongoing process, but we're so close to it now, and we're enthralled by the occult power of people like Ariana Grande, who has a 4-octave range, singing range. She's like a Mariah Carey level. My dog whistle singing. Incredible singer, but she's completely steeped in this world of Nickelodeon. Continue with the questions, please. Or
right.
I'm
gonna put you on the spot now.
Okay, please.
I'm going to show you a video of Jim Carrey, and I'm going to pause it at pertinent points and get your thoughts on the deeper meanings, your interpretation of the deeper meanings of what he's saying. So, are you ready for this? Are you?
I am ready. Nobody can beat me, even ChatGPT or Grok.
Right, here we go. Have I got it on the? Is it on the screen? Can you see it?
Not yet.
Oh, let me see what I've done. 1 second. There it is. That's why. Okay. Wondered where it had gone. Let me make it big. There we go. And play. Here we go.
Say, Jim Carrey. Yes.
What?
I've covered a lot of fashion weeks. This is the first time I've run into Jim Carrey. Wait, tell me, is it true you're wandering the streets? You need a date to the party? What's up?
No. I'm doing just fine. I just, there's no meaning to any of this. So I wanted to find the most meaningless thing that I could come to and join, and here I am.
What do you think of that? There's no meaning to any of this.
I've seen this one before, and you know what? He's dead serious. Jim Carrey is the personification of the real meaning of woke, not this fake USAID funded wokeness, this BLM La Raza woke, but he's really woke, as with the original, as we use the term 30, 40 years ago. That's Jim Carrey. I will watch any movie that he puts out there. And I think what happened is that he was in the Truman Show and he realized, damn, this is what it's all about. And he changed completely after that movie. Did you ever see Truman Show?
With the fake TV thing, yes.
Yes, it's sort of like, reality show, but it's a closed universe, sort of like Nickelodeon, sort of like Wicked. It's quote unquote Hollywood. And I think he's clowning this woman. I mean, he's not trying to embarrass her. He knows that she's just sort of a drone, right, holding a microphone. Some wannabe who,
semi-Stepford Ariana glazed eye look, doesn't she? Like Kanye's Bianca.
She does. Yeah. I don't know what sort of what sort of medication you're on, but he's having a good laugh at her expense.
Oh, let's keep going.
They're
I
celebrating.
mean, you got to admit it's completely meaningless.
Well, they say they're celebrating icons inside.
Celebrating
Do you believe
icons,
in
boy,
icons?
that is just the absolute lowest aiming, possibility that we could come up with. It's like icons. Do you believe in icons? I don't believe in personalities. I don't believe that you exist, but there is a wonderful fragrance in the air.
Do you believe in icons, Professor?
Yes, I do. And I'm an iconoclast. I smash icons for a living. So he's
So you
clowning her. He smells his fragrance and his fertilizer. It's BS. You notice he doesn't have any arm candy with him. There's no semi-naked women that he's parading around because he's been through that already. Wasn't he dating, I don't know, some of these starlets in the past, not too long ago, 10, 15 years ago? He was married to some of the top level beauties of the day. And I think he finally realized that, hey, man, I was seduced. I've been played. So what I would suggest is for Jim Carrey to contact me. I'll write him a movie. He should produce it, direct it, star in it, and I'll hook him up with all the Asian money that's being invested in America from China and from Japan. And I'll make sure that there'll be straight yellow men in there, not flaming gays. Or no witches either. No greens. There might be some black and some browns, definitely white people, but no greens. Jim Carrey, let's do business. Let's talk. Randy Quaid, the invitation's open for you too. I want to see Randy Quaid on the screen again. I want to see him make a major movie. Because you know what? He's been proven right with his whole concept of star whackers. I knew he was right when he first came out, him and his wife, Edie, I believe her name is. And I've seen their movie, their documentary. I said, he nailed it. I understand why he's on the run. And Jim Carrey is in that category. And you know what? They're going to be joined with increasing intensity by other so-called icons. So it's ending. This is why a lot of production is being offshored from Pacific Palisades, which is burnt to the ground, being moved to Canada, to Quebec, to move in the other Five Eyes countries. Also, it's because of trade deals and embargoes. And if Trump wants to help the American economy and help the Directors Guild of America and the Writers Guild East-West, these are American trade guilds for screenwriters, producers, directors, then I say start making filmmaking a priority in America. And same with Britain. Britain came out of the gate early on with their own national cinema. I don't want to see British films about American topics. I want to see what life is like in contemporary United Kingdom, right? I want to see a movie about Chinatown in Liverpool. You're acquainted with it, are you not?
I am. It's all grooming gangs and drug gangs in the inner cities now. Here, let me continue with Jim before we derail.
Oh, please.
Let's keep going.
You don't believe certain icons have the power to make change, to think differently, to be bold, to inspire others? Artistry, you're one of them.
On the good foot. Ha! Yeah. You shut it down now. Yeah, no, I don't believe in icons. I don't believe in personalities. I believe that peace lies beyond personality, beyond invention and disguise, beyond the red S that you wear on your chest that makes bullets bounce off. I believe that it's deeper than that. I believe.
What did he say? Peace lies beyond personality. What does he mean by that?
Well, I think he's having some fun. He's trying to be profound like a lot of these dimly educated Hollywood types, right? They read a couple science fiction novels and they watch other movies. That's about the level of literacy. And they go up there and start spouting nonsense like Sean Penn. I mean, he went over to talk to Vladimir Zelensky and presented Sean Penn his Oscar to him. And
Was it
as a form of homage. Huh?
Was it US? Did the USAID pay him to go out there with Angelina Jolie?
That or NATO. They're probably all the same, NATO and the United Nations, which is crazy because his father was a really, Arthur Penn was he was an excellent director. This is before directors were completely controlled from the University of Southern California Cinema School, NYU Cinema School, UCLA Cinema School. Before the academic world start enforcing a certain ideological orthodoxy on creators. Originally, this talent came out of the rough and tumble Lower East Side. They were ghetto. They were the sons of Jewish immigrants or immigrants themselves from other countries. And they had a hard scrabble existence and understanding of the world. The ones we're seeing now are a bunch of crazy rich people like John Chu and Kevin, whatever his name is, who wrote Crazy Rich Asians. His grandfather was the head of the Overseas Chinese Bank. He comes from a banking family. No wonder he's going to get a publishing contract. No ghetto Asian like me is going to get nothing. So I'm with Jim Carrey all the way. I'm with Kanye West. I stand with him.
Let's finish, Jim. 1 second.
I stand with 50 Cent, too.
Hold on.
We were a field of energy dancing for itself. And I don't care.
But Jim, you got really dressed up for the occasion. You look good.
No, I didn't.
Was that
get
an accident?
I didn't get dressed up.
Who did?
There is no me.
There's no you.
No.
We're not here. This is a dream.
There's just things happening. And there are clusters of tetrahedrons moving around together.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what's happening in our world right now? Because there is a lot of news that actually is relevant that's not that
Here's
uplifting.
the thing. It's not our world.
None
That's
of
the
this is
key.
real?
Nope.
So you're just passing
We don't
through.
matter. We don't matter.
Oh, wow.
There's the good news.
Okay.
It's no wonder they put that on. It's E! News. It's about as lowbrow as you can get. TMZ, all that stuff. And believe me, I watch it. I've seen that interview. I'm not above it. Mr. Atwood, I am of the people. I'm into the culture. The difference is that I don't embrace the icon. I throw it down on the ground and stomp on it. And in place, I put my culture out there, my word, my intelligence, my creativity. And I encourage everybody who's watching this, especially the young people, to follow that same pattern. You can watch Wicked to get some ideas and go against it, but don't make that. Don't absorb it in the world. You're absorbing the energy of an Ariana Grande. You know, I'm just picking her name out because she's the star, ostensibly, of Wicked. But there's you can say Lady Goo. You can say Taylor Swift. There's a whole bunch of them, and there's more in the pipeline. It's an endless supply.
Let's do a quick poll, Professor.
Supply
chain. I'm going to do a quick poll. Put a 1 in the chat if you've already subscribed to the Professor. Put a 2 in the chat if you have not, but you are about to. And the link is in the live chat, and it's also in the description box. Professor Hamamoto is marching to 100,000 subs. Let's accelerate that, please. Lots of ones coming in. And my next question is then, because we've had this deluge of executive orders, and there's all kinds of changes afoot. Does this mean that the infiltration of intelligence into academia, how has Trump becoming president impacted that? I mean, is a lot of that financed by bureaucracies that he's shutting down, for example?
Absolutely. I'm getting all kinds of correspondence, internal correspondence meant for only academic types. They're panicking. They're panicking because the money supply is drying up. All this largesse that they're used to over the past several decades coming through all these dark and gray money sources, and USAID is only one of them. That's drying up. And that's a good thing, because only the good research is going to be allowed to flourish. About 80% of even so-called hard science, I'll be more generous, maybe 70%. 70% of so-called hard science is fraudulent, part of it. There's a site called Retraction Watch that's run by a medical doctor turned journalist. He's in residence at New York University, and his whole job and his staff, his interns, mostly young people, are looking at research and science research, hard research, so-called, and trying to look at the methodology. And he's finding that the vast majority of it is bogus or incorrect, not accidentally, but willfully. And add to that, now we have ChatGPT and Grok AI. And on record, just recently, and again, it happens to be a yellow man, he's a PhD type researcher, he got busted for crafting a research paper based on AI. And Mr. Atwood, people like you and me are going to have a limited existence, because we're already seeing on YouTube these news readers, these presenters who I can tell are getting their content, quote unquote, from ChatGPT. They're repeating other people's work on YouTube, which originates on Grok. It's already been being done on print media. That's why I think your show is so important, because we're doing this in real time. You are throwing me wild cards and having me react on the spot extemporaneously. You're laying down a chord pattern and asking me to improvise over it. That's the true test of an artist, not reading the scripts generated from ChatGPT. So thank you for your service, because you have live guests on your show who are extemporaneously breaking down what's happening at the moment. So thank you for this opportunity again.
Well, I only do it because it's more fun for me.
Exactly. Well,
So-
you know.
So are you saying then that these funnels financing certain agendas in academia are being
Yes.
demolished by Trump, and there's going to be some they can't push, they're not going to be able to push these agendas as aggressively?
He's on his way. Where he's lacking is that he doesn't have the proper Department of U.S. Department of Education person. Her name is Linda McMahon, or McMahon, and she happens to be the wife of this guy Vince McMahon, who's a UFC, a mixed martial arts magnate, who used to stage these fights at the Trump arenas, places like New Jersey, the boardwalk, right? She's not qualified. I should be the U.S. Department of Education czar, because by the end of my 4-year term, the Department of Education will be demolished, and the funding, the federal largesse, has been done away with. And I'll also cut the corporate ties, big pharma specifically, to so-called sponsored research at the university, so that we're not continually being barraged by these biocidal concoctions that come out of these Swiss-based organizations. I won't say the corporate names because I don't want this channel to be taken down, but everybody who's watching this show know who I'm talking about. They could change their name from Monsanto to Bayer, for example, or Bayer, but they're still there. And that is the lifeblood of the universe. That relationship has to be curtailed, if not severed. So, President Trump, I appeal to you, make me the Department of Education secretary or undersecretary, and we're going to look specifically into funding and the infiltration of the intelligence entities, including foreign intelligence entities, not just U.S., that are controlling the university. right? And the professors and upper level administrators that are complicit in this. We can do it because there's been a mass public awakening very recently. But so far, the university education, higher education, is considered off limits by the general public. But I worked in the belly of the beast. I'm telling you that if we want to solve problems in the long term, we have to definitely go in on higher education, from the elite institutions to the publicly funded one, all of it. Right. And specifically, since I've been talking about yellow people, much to the chagrin of some of the people who think they're beyond racial identity, it's yellow people who are being, in the American universities, yellow people who are being kept out of these elite institutions, from the Ivy League to the University of California, which is publicly funded. We are targeted for, and instead we're giving people like John Chu to put across the GLBTQ plus agenda as a SOP. But in the meantime, we're being kept out of the academic admissions process because we are overrepresented there. This is America, supposedly operates in pure meritocracy, but we as yellow people are being kept down. And by the way, we're being kept down by the group that historically was excluded by the white Anglo-Saxon Protestant. I'm talking about American Jews, right? Who are at the University of Pennsylvania, Harvard, Yale, and the University of California. They are now doing what was done a generation ago, only to yellow people now. And we're not going to accept having a John Chu, a crazy rich Asian from Palo Alto, or some Singaporean Chinese, Kevin Kwan, who comes from a banking family, represent us in total. Because most of us are ghetto rats like me. Or we're aspiring middle class. We're aspirationals. You feel me? It's the same with you, ain't it?
Helena wants to know your thoughts on the lobbyists.
Man, so long as there are lobbies, there will be lobbyists. We can curtail it. There's still a lot of money to be circulated and greasing the palms. We know most of the people who are receiving the money. A lot of them are Republicans, not just the Democrats, but Republicans. I'm sure in Britain's the same. The Tories, Labour, it's all the same. The multinational, transnational Swiss corporations own everybody, lock, stock, and barrel. And they're the ones who own these movies too, which are responsible for the ideological grooming of the world population. The only countries that the US and the UK is at war with, or the neocons in America specifically, are the countries that say we're not going to go along with this globalist transsexual agenda, most notably Russia. When Pussy Riot came in there, they spanked him a little bit on the wrist, and then they sent him home and saying, no, Soros organization, bye-bye, niet, nothing. We're not going to be globalists. We are going to be Russians. You know, we have our own history. Russians have our own history of intellectual contributions, aesthetic, artistic. You can't really deny that, no matter how hard you try. And they showed in the type of resolve they have and the patience they have with the crazy attacks, literal attacks on military attacks on their sovereignty. But we've been attacking them ideologically for quite a long time. We know now about USAID. We know about the Soros organization. Those are just two of the more prominent ones. The cultural engineering or re-engineering is instrumental here. So who are the yellow people? I'll answer that anthropologically. The yellow people are Neolithic peoples that come from a Huang Pu. That's a yellow river. It's a yellow river civilization where my ancestors come from. That's why I reappropriated the word yellow and don't use Asian, because that's a government designation. For people in Asia, they don't call themselves Asian. They call themselves whatever tribal group they're at. So that's why I say yellow, just like some black people call themselves black and some brown people call themselves brown. So there's a reason why I'm specifically say yellow. People like John Chu, M. Chu, and Bowen Yang, those people who work in global Hollywood and have gotten the official approval out of the University of Southern California, where John Chu got his degree, USC, you pay your way in there, you get to move forward and anointed. And in part of the gay mafia that runs the operation there. I call him Asian. I call him Asian American. That's what he calls himself. I'm not that. I am ghetto. I'm yellow. Say it loud. I'm yellow and proud. Just like
Guys,
Jim Carrey was doing a little impression of James Brown. Did you catch that?
yeah,
Toward
I
the
live
end?
in America.
Exactly. That was James Brown who said, say it loud, I'm black and I'm proud. I say it loud, I'm yellow and proud. Deal with it. Make a movie about my life, not some wizards. I am the wizard.
You certainly got the wizard's beard. All right, viewers, please put your questions in the chat.
I'm the Oriental Gandalf.
Let's challenge Hamamoto, the deconstructor of icons.
Yeah.
Yes.
Put me on the hot spot. I love it.
Put him in the hot seat.
Yeah,
where do you get your kimono from? That's the first one.
Well, for one, it's not a kimono. This is a padded winter jacket. You can get it, I think, online somewhere. It was given to me as a gift, but this is MIJ, made in Japan. Not MIC, made in China, straight up made in Japan. And it's padded, cotton padding. It's good for winter.
All right. Where was this question? I've just lost. What is it?
Pardon my...
Okay. What is your taking on Gene Hackman's strange ending?
Well, hey, guess what? He was married to a yellow woman. It must be a conspiracy.
He was.
Huh?
That's true. Yeah, he was. That's true.
Yeah. She died, and she was not sick. She was early 60s, I think. He was 95, so if you're 95, it wouldn't be too unexpected. But she died, and their dog died. Is that a coincidence? Yeah, there he is. He's an actor's actor, Gene Hackman. And he's the antithesis of a Hollywood celebrity. He's actually an actor. And he came up the hard way. He's not a Nepo actor, nepotism. He's not the grandson of some banker who got him a job. He worked his way in. You can still do that in quote unquote Hollywood in certain areas, athletics. If you have talent, even if you come from less than privileged circumstances, at least in America, you can make it. I want to keep that channel open for everybody. Man, woman, gay, straight. I don't like children being groomed for certain purposes. 20 years henceforth. That was Gene Hackman. I forgot his wife's name. But they lived quietly, I think, in Santa Fe, which is a refuge of sort for people with money and artistic, creative backgrounds. Famously, D.H. Lawrence lived there for a while with Frida Lawrence because he was tubercular. It was good for his lungs. Betsy, thank you very much. You got it. Betsy Arakawa. So she was Japanese American. She was of my generation. If she heard me on my channel or our conversation here, she would know what I was talking about because she lived it too, I'm pretty sure.
So they were saying then that she had the hantavirus and died a week before him. and then he was it Alzheimer's? He may not even known, and the dog was locked. One of the dogs was locked in a wardrobe or something. It's just all really strange, isn't it?
Quite strange, especially since he has managers and business people that handle his affairs. And I tend to side, and he hasn't said this directly, but he's implying strongly that there's foul play involved. And I'm alluding to, again, his name came up earlier in this conversation, Randy Quaid. Randy Quaid, the guy who talked about Star Whackers, he said that Gene Hackman had a very lively residual royalty stream coming in. And the Star Whackers like people like that. People who own recording properties, song publishing, people like Michael Jackson, Prince, those type feel that there's a reason why a lot of well-known songwriters sold their property recently to a company named Hypnosis. People like Bob Dylan sold part of his catalog. Neil Young. I think they're told there was going to be a crash, or they were giving a signal that sell us now. You know, you can do it the easy way. We'll get some cash for you, or do it the hard way. They want because these rights are almost forever copyrights. And that is Gene Hackman on the right with our late president, Ronald Reagan, who doesn't look like Ronald Reagan. It looks like a stand-in. It looks like a wax dummy from Madame Tussauds. And of course, we know that he was target of an assassination attempt by a family friend of George H.W. Bush, John Hinckley.
Hinckley.
Yes, John Hinckley.
Bush, who happened to be his vice president.
Just happened to be. My gosh, we're talking like a bunch of conspiranoids.
Wasn't it you, Professor, with the adage, they're worth more dead than they are alive?
I can't take credit for that. My adage is, hey, it's all about the royalties. It's all about the royalty stream. And the musicians and actors, and they call that a mailbox money. You know, they're at home, they're not working, they're hanging out in Santa Fe, but the residual checks come into the mailbox, so to speak. You know, they just collect the checks and cash it. Yeah.
That bullet from Hinckley stopped just short of his heart, didn't it? And
yes, but now I'm hearing that might have been a dart. There's a recent hypothesis being advanced that it was actually a poison dart. Because the trauma surgeon that treated President Reagan at the hospital could find no bullet hole. But they did find something resembling a fletch. Is that what it's called? Sort of like a dart and arrow. Shot from an angle above. Yeah.
All I know is after the assassination attempt,
yes,
Reagan pretty much signed over all of his powers to the Bush crime family.
He did?
And yeah. I mean, even while he was in the hospital, they were already drawing it all up.
All right, there you go.
I've written about this, folks, in my book, Clinton, Bush, and CIA Conspiracies. It is
pick that one up. I have almost all your volumes.
The Hinckley story. All right, you've got tons more questions have come in.
Please.
So let's get this one because it's a concerned mother. Anne, our daughter is in med school in Utah. She has been told that she will be unable to take out enough loans to finish. Is this to lower the prices of education? Any ideas?
Yes, medical education should be free, quote unquote. There's enough tax revenue generated to educate all people in the not just physicians, but nurses, people in the health professions. And we're going to need them because we've been purposely made into a sick and an ill population. We do need to be made healthy and whole again. But if I was the director of education, that would be one of my initiatives to make medical related, allied health, let's say, medical assistance, tuition free, but also make sure the universities were not inflating costs. No cost plus type arrangements, real costs to educate them. And of course, in exchange, they're going to have to perform public service according to a rationally based salary and benefits schedule. We can work out the particulars there. But there's no reason why in America, one of the wealthiest countries in the world, why we cannot train competent health professionals. We can do it and we will do it. But Linda McMahon is not going to do the job. People are mad at Pam Bondi, the FBI, the Department of Justice. Okay, she's one person. I think Department of Education is really where all the weaponization is taking place, like you've alluded to, Mr. Atwood, at the university, at K through 12. We should also decertify all the so-called teachers' unions. These are just extortion schemes anyway. Just like the labor unions have become nothing but racketeering writ large. Do you know how much those union labor people make? They're well into the six figures, and that's just their salary. They've got a lot of side hustles taking place too. Consultancies.
When I went to university here to do business studies, economics, it was all free. But then war criminal Tony Blair got in and started putting all the students in debt for the benefit of his banking bankster backers. Absolute scum. All right, so you've got another question here from Katz. What's the antidote to the assault on uni education, grants or funding?
Neither. Immediately is self-education. Most of us are familiar with Amazon.com or a bookseller online. I don't have any stock in them, but that's who I use. Start buying the books of Mr. Atwood. He's done probably a couple dozen by now. Independent authors, Kirby Summers. You've had Kirby Summers on your show a few times. I've always enjoyed her appearances. She's written a number of books from a perspective, again, from an insider's perspective on what's really going down. And there's just two people. There's tons of people who are now have the opportunity to, and they're going around the publishing establishment, the publishing mafia, who are usually these trust fund babies like John Chu or Kevin Kwan, and they work at publishing. They keep people like us out, but you can publish your own work, but start reading, start buying the independent books. That's your education. Formal education, well, that's a long-term project, but it can be solved. The problem was artificially created under Tony Blair. They were following the Wall Street, City of London model, right? Mass indebtedness of the middle class, the aspiring, aspirational professionals of the future, including medical doctors, right? Put them in bondage, debt bondage, control them. We can work on that, but it's not going to happen with Linda McMahon at the helm. She should go back to championship wrestling with her husband and talk to Hulk Hogan and all these muscle heads in the bikini pants who go around throwing each other in these fake martial arts combats. Some of it's real, by the way. And notice, by the way, they call it mixed martial arts. They refuse to call it Asian martial arts, which is what it is. They call it mixed martial arts. And I know I'm going to get some muscle heads complaining about that. Go ahead.
Half of these poor young people who came after me that ended up in debt bondage to get their degrees are still living with their parents because they can't afford housing now. It's an absolute travesty. So Bailey's put this question in quite a few times. One more time, Professor. Is Seke Take part of Okinawa Karate Miyagi? Serious question.
Okinawa Karate or Budo comes from China. That part of Japan, which is now Japan, was settled by people from mainland China. So it comes from those traditions over there. It went to Okinawa, the Ryukyu Islands, and went northward, and it was stolen by the mainland people, and they call it judo or karate or jujitsu, but it's originally a Chinese martial art. I don't know about Sekai Take. I don't know that school, but I lived in Okinawa for 1 year, and it's really an integral part of the culture. The children do that. You know, they watch Wicked and all the Disney and Nickelodeon Japan version of it to teach them how to be good queers and emasculated Japanese who are not reproducing. Same with your South Koreans. They have a 0.7 reproduction rate, and all you see is queer K-pop stars coming out of there. That's purposeful, right? The eugenics people of the city of London and Wall Street, they're loving it. They love K-pop and J-pop. They want to see a whole feminized Asian world because it's a depopulated world. And also, most of East Asia was unconquerable by the Khazarians. They were in Shanghai or other parts of China. They were not allowed to go into Japan. The Dutch traders, mostly Jewish traders, who came to Japan in the 16th centuries, they were embargoed outside of Nagasaki in a little island, Deshima. And that's how Japan was able to compete with the colonizing West. And to answer your Bailey X's question, the martial arts was a part of a national resistance against these colonizing forces. So I think it's important that a nation maintain the martial spirit. And we can leave Vince McMahon out of it. We don't have to do UFC or so-called mixed martial arts or the caged octagon, whatever it is. And I watch a lot of it on YouTube. But it's really unnecessary. We can do it ourselves.
What did Adam Smith say in The Wealth of the Nations, Professor, about nations that do not maintain a martial spirit?
They get colonized.
Exactly.
And Britain never forgave the fact that the Japanese on bicycles came down to the Malaysian peninsula and took it away from them. They said, damn, those little buggers, how did they do that? Well, they've been trying to pay us back ever since then. Fukushima, earthquakes, psi powers, but now it's soft propaganda. I call it soft colonialism. It's the Disney movies. It's Nickelodeon Japan, and they're doing it to the South Koreans. The birth rate, they've already reached a demographic cliff. Pretty soon, there'll be no yellow people. Pretty soon, there'll be no Gentiles.
I've got something on my mind. I just need to do a quick poll. So viewers, put a 1 in the chat if you think the government should stop giving money to cokehead Zelensky and give all those billions upon billions to young people for education, because young people are the future of the nation. Put a 2 in the chat if you think our government should give Zelensky even more money to foment even more corpses on the battlefields of Ukraine, the blood sacrifice of over 1 million young people destroyed rather than educated. Let's see what people say. We've got lots of ones coming in. Yeah. Good choices, folks. All right, next question is from B. How can we identify frauds, pop-up pundits? Because they all seem to be. They got that glazed Stepford wife, Bianca, ARIANA eyes.
Yeah.
They're reading from teleprompters and AI.
ChatGPT and Grok. Yeah. Well, I'm glad your B, is it B? B has identified that they all seem to be, because most of them are. You can tell if they're promoted on Joe Rogan, and then they go over to Alex Jones, and they make the whole circuit because they're being anointed to be the next distraction. Another good way of doing it is that if you don't see Sean Atwood on this show, then they're a pop-up pundit. If he is on it, then they're for real.
Is the Steven Seagal dojo
No,
legit?
1 second. You haven't been on Joe Rogan, have you? Have
No,
you?
no, I've never.
That proves my point. If there's someone that Joe Rogan would want on his show with your background, you know, and your writing, your track record, it would be you. Why aren't you on there? I think I know. Because you're too real.
Well, he's got a rule that you've got to go to his studio, and I'm banned from America for life. But he did have the guy who fled to Russia on, what was his name? The I can't remember his name now.
Victor.
What was the guy who fled to Russia? The whistleblower who worked for intelligence.
Oh, Snowden.
Snowden. Yeah, he had him on. Got him on remotely.
Yeah, well, he could put you in on Zoom.
Exactly.
Oh my gosh!
Is
This
Steven
guy is a
Seagal
martial artist? He is. Yeah, he's not legit. He's, you know, they talk about cultural appropriation. They should put his picture there under that little entry. That's Steven Seagal. His whole story, his whole legend is total BS. But that's true. Ever since they gave the role of Kwai Chang Caine to David Carradine instead of Bruce Lee, which they were supposed to, but they couldn't because he didn't want to be gay. He wasn't. Well, thank you, Star E Gucci. Thank you for joining the conversation here. I like these reaction videos, spontaneous combustions. I'd like to be put on the spot because I'm proving to you that I'm not Chat GPT. I am not Alexa. I'm all the way live.
Can you do the Alexa voice?
No, I don't even know what it is. I wouldn't have such a creature in my house. Okay. I'm glad he's free, finally.
Oh, well, you've been asked your thoughts on him?
Yeah, I think he's a hero. Yeah. I mean, it shows you the power of public support. He had mass public support. People didn't forget about him, just like we should not forget about Tommy Robinson and other political prisoners, because he lived to tell his story. He was able to rejoin his family after all those years. And it can happen. Same with the J6 people that were released not too long ago. Public pressure. And it happens because of public awareness, constant attention, calling out the authorities for it, and having our people in positions of power where we can exercise our political will. Yeah. My feeling is that we can't joke around a little bit, that we've become the other side. We've become a bunch of transgender terrorists, these humorless, violent
10
people.
minutes left. We've got 10 minutes left, folks, for you to get your final questions in for the professor. So, please do so. So, Rain Marie, do you think Trump was really shot in the ear?
No, he was shot in the ass. You know, I think it was all just a hologram of Jim Carrey type of situation. So it was all fake. Anything good or positive or anything about winning and having a winning attitude and behavior, it's all fake, because a lot of the people on our side ostensibly are a bunch of losers and defeatists. And we don't want you in our movement. You can join the Democratic Party, or you can join Labor, or the Conservative, whoever the Tories. We don't want you. Go off in your corner and sulk and suck your thumb.
Thoughts on
Dave McGowan? Dave McGowan was a synthesis of a bunch of different people. I read all his books, and they all stylistically different. And his goal, his assignment was to obsess about so-called Laurel Canyon, just like people obsess about Hollywood, so that people won't look beyond David Crosby and Frank Zappa and Joni Mitchell, blah, 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 woof, woof. So I read the books, but I put them in that perspective. They're very entertaining, but so are a lot of books supposedly in quote unquote our movement.
Why
Also,
does
the flat
Elon say
earthers, Beatles, yeah.
Why does Elon say he can go to space if the moon landing was fake and anyone who goes will blow up and die in that belt?
That I don't know. I think it's more of a mystery is how come he doesn't really talk about the possibility of off-planet life? He's still using a very 20th, really actually 19th century Jules Verne concept of space travel, which is combustion, blow up, the Roman candle idea. I think if there's going to be interplanetary travel, it's not going to be done by blowing up stuff. It's going to be more like, teleportation, something like that. So that's Elon Musk. I mean, he's a businessman. You can just if you can get money by funding projects, whether they come to fruition or not, USAID proved that that's a business model. NASA called it a self-licking ice cream cone. The whole reason that the project exists is because the project exists. And I think that's what SpaceX is, except for the so-called communication satellites. Those are real. And they're also dangerous so far as the surveillance state's concerned. So he doesn't get a total pass. We have to watch Mr. Elon Musk very carefully too.
So
I think his heart's in the right place.
Deanne likes it when you dress up according to the show. Is there a theme or just when you feel like it? Love your baseball get-up.
Well, since I was talking about yellow people today, I thought I would wear my little outfit here. But when I talk about sports, I do have, baseball cap and the jersey and whatnot. And if I'm meeting people who I need to show respect to, like our mutual friend, Ori Spado, well, I will wear a sports jacket because he's a dapper old school gangster, right? So I need to rise to his level of sartorial splendor, let's call it. But yeah, we're all in costumes, just like Jim Carrey says. We're all playing a role here.
How did you learn so much about different cultures?
Well, again, the education is the reading, it's traveling, it's trying to absorb as much as you can, listening to people, listening skills are very important to everybody, not just to pundits, not just to supposed educated people, but anybody in all walks of life. They have something important to tell us, right? And I've had all kinds of jobs, so I talk to everybody. I'm not shy about that. I don't care. I will just, I'm just being friendly and talking, and you just find amazing information about people's society, their culture themselves, their biographical information. Because as you probably figured out by now, I was always a wannabe novelist. So I always have a inquisitive approach to people and cultures. I want to know what makes it run, what makes it tick.
What's your most fascinating and enlightening travel story?
Oh my gosh, I have so many. I think my annus mirabilis, my miracle year, was 93 to 94 when I did a Fulbright fellowship at the University of Hiroshima. And it was almost like I was fated to go there because I was able to do research on the whole Hiroshima phenomenon, going back to the attack on that center. And I got to spend a whole year studying it. I still haven't published that book yet on it because none of the publishers in New York City, controlled by people who control John Chu and Kevin Kwan, they're mostly women from wealthy families, trust fund babies. None of them would publish my manuscript. So I'm going to have to do it myself eventually, but it'll require a rewrite and re-editing. So yeah, that in itself is a book, which is what I did. I have the manuscript, but no one wants to publish it. That's one of the reasons why I sound so bitter, because this is the product of my life, my experience. It's just one of fighting these individuals, which I welcome to. I don't mind that. I don't shy away from it. I'm just telling you that it is a struggle. And if you're asking me questions about, this, that, and the other, tells me that you haven't really been tested yet. But it'll come to everybody. Even Ariana Grande will meet a test. She might be riding high now, but she will be at a point where she has to look herself in the mirror, just like Jim Carrey did. And Jim Carrey is a demonstration of how you can make a change. Not you, but any of us can make a 180-degree change. And one of the strategies, as someone alluded to earlier, one of your questioners, is through joking, through humor. It's subversive. He didn't take the interview seriously. He clowned that woman, and he was clowning the audience. But he was also sending us, people who know what's going on, a message saying, I'm with you. I get it. A very high context message to people who are aware. This is what Jim Carrey was doing. And you can do the same thing in your fiction, your poetry, music, songwriting, musicals even. I would like to see a musical, Broadway or West End, I don't care where it is, a musical that's not gay. Why do all contemporary musicals have to be queer? I don't get it. Are they not going to rest until the whole world is queer? I don't think so. It's beyond equality. Now they're moving to the next stage. Everybody has to be queer. It's compulsory homosexuality, because they want to overthrow the so-called heteropatriarchy that comes right out of the university world. Not for long, because I'm going to become the secretary of the Department of Education. I'm not going to ban free speech, but I'm going to have students and young people laugh you out of the classroom, saying, are you kidding? That's daddy stuff. That's dad talk. That's yacht rock. That's so old hat. We want something that speaks to us as young people in 2025. And I have a lot of faith in the young people that they're going to come up with some really revolutionary ideas right now, very soon. It's happening right now, because some of these people who are dictating what we should think at the university, college, K through 12, those people are aging out. They're moving out. A new generation is coming in. And that's who I'm really addressing, saying, hey, there's a geezer like me who's out there. We're waiting to hear what you have to show us. You can be the next director of the first non-gay musical of the 21st century.
Professor,
yes.
What can people look forward to on your channel in the coming week?
Well, I have a show coming up on Sunday, and I'll just give you a quick preview. I'm going to review this book, and it comes out of University of California Press. It's academic press, and it's called Cinema's Military Industrial Complex. And it talks about how all that we're seeing in cinema and by extension television and new media is actually a military operation. And there's some good cutting edge recent scholarship that provides the receipts. They're providing the evidence for the argument. I'm reading some very important. I want to share it with the wider audience, because we are, without noticing it, are being subjected to a military operation. In the U.S., there's a unit within the U.S. Army called 4th Army Psychological Unit. That's just one of them. And their specialty is to figure out how to subdue targeted populations through what people call generically is mind control. And we already know that movies and television, new media are performing that function. We have to understand historically how it was set up. And I'm learning here. I mean, I knew this already, but now I'm getting details. We know that the U.S. Library of Congress started a special experimental division focusing on films back in the late 30s, right on the edge of World War II. And they were collecting films, for example, of Triumph of the Will. They were getting all these films from all over the world, and they had anthropologists analyzing them, not just to understand the enemy, but to figure out how to subjugate the American public itself. They said, yeah, we could learn from Leni Riefenstahl how mass movements work by watching her films. And that's where television, Germany pioneered radio and television. You know, they talk about paperclip, all that technology being transferred from Germany, Nazi Germany, Third Reich technology to the US. But that also includes television and radio, microphones, recording equipment. It went to Britain. EMI bought a lot of it, right? EMI was the parent company of Capital, not Capital, but you know, they ran the Beatles, for example. They did all kinds of equipment related to communications, stemming from going back to radar, which British people pioneered. So I'm going to be talking about the military connection and in this conversation this Sunday immediately. That's on the agenda to answer your question.
Sounds amazing. Huge thank you for coming on. We always learn so much from you, and we really appreciate you spending this time with us. We hope that you will come back soon, and I will let you go while I close the show. So you take care, my friend. Thank you.
Thank you for the invitation, Mr. Atwood.
Cheers, Professor. Adios.
Cheers.
All right. What a fantastic guest. It's always such a delight to speak to the professor. I know there was still tons of questions outstanding. I'll put his YouTube link again in the live chat. Go over and pester him on his comments and tell him you came from over here. And please remember to subscribe. So we have got many people are talking about Ryan Dawson and Lionel in the chat. So I'm going to reach out to Lionel in a minute and see if he will come on Saturday night at 9 p.m. He said he's got more to talk about regarding the phony, PR, BS, Epstein list was going to be released, and it was all a bunch of stuff we already knew. People in the chat also were mentioning Ryan Dawson. I have been speaking to him on Twitter this week, and I am going to message him as well to see if he will come on Saturday afternoon, because he's in, where is he now? Is it Korea? I think he's in Korea. So the time zone is a lot different from us. So it's usually an afternoon show with Ryan Dawson. And if you missed the show we did earlier today, perhaps you were in bed, wherever you are in the world, we had a fantastic show with a guest we've never had on before. His name is Alex Craner, and the video is called Hunter Biden, Burisma, BlackRock. Did Zelensky sell Ukraine's minerals to Starmer? Absolutely fascinating guest. He's up there with Scott Ritter and Colonel McGregor, etc., deconstructing the ploys of the banksters and Zelensky and NATO and Starmer, the co-conspirators in the bloodbath. And he laid it out with just brilliant research steeped in geopolitics. So if you missed that one early today, I urge people to catch that one. It was a real gem. And I'm going to go to bed shortly, spend some time with Jen and baby Ziggy. But we will be back. I'm going to be back on Saturday, hopefully, with those two streams. Ron's got his shows tomorrow. And then he's got some shows on Friday evening but we've got a lot of other stuff pending that I'm going to try and work in the meantime as well. So thanks for tuning in. It's been such an absolute blast and such a fantastic vibe. There's just such good chemistry with the professor and you, the viewers, and all of your banter and all of your lovely questions and comments. And I just feel blessed that I'm able to just sit here and just have a laugh. What an easy job I have got. I am absolutely spoiled. So good night, folks.